The federal government has responded to former Vice President and People's Democratic Party presidential candidate Alhaji Atiku Abubakar's reaction to his loss at the Supreme Court in the last election. According to the government, Atiku's response to his defeat was deemed inappropriate as he did not gracefully accept the court's decision and instead tried to discredit various state institutions. The ruling APC disclosed that Atiku criticized the Independent National Electoral Commission and the judiciary for not bending the law to favour him. The APC says Atiku's politics only accepts outcomes that benefit him and undermines the democratic process when it doesn't. The APC, however, countered his pessimism about Nigeria's future and claims that the country is progressing under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Now, joining me tonight to discuss this, we are joined by Segun Sowunmi, a PDP stalwart who joins us from the nation's capital, Abuja. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Sowunmi, and thanks for joining us on the news.
Good evening.
Now, Mr. Sowunmi, you were at the venue of the World Press Conference by Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Could you kindly elaborate on the specific allegations made by the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku, regarding the judiciary's alleged collaboration with the ruling class, and what evidence or examples support those claims?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, when this is the first time in our democracy that we're having the opposition come to the play in a way that opposition parties should come to the play. Of course, we have taken the Supreme Court judgment in good faith, but we have only queried with their lack of desire to do summary justice, only looking for technical way out. We hold very strongly that them not accepting that evidence, which speaks to the integrity of our country as a whole, and whether eligibility can be conferred when there is no basis to prove that it's eligible, or that forgery can be considered as a minor misdemeanor when in the real sense of the word constitutionally is a big issue. These are some of the things we were saying there. And I think it was also saying concerning even the kinds of, you can't produce clear evidence that maybe you can produce the receipt of monies and all of that. But if you were thinking that Atiku is just, raising a wolf, you should just go and listen to retired Justice Musada Tijo Mohammed, whom all persons in this country within that space consider quite reputable after about 40 years doing that job, and what he had said about the tendency, the image, the reputation, the parochialism, the nepotism that the court has become. I think Atiku was speaking to what the people in the country also feel. There are not many people in the country who believe that the Supreme Court could not have been braver in expanding and using his gravitas to do more. If you produce you the smoking gun and say this is the murder weapon, and you come and say, oh, the person is dead, that's fine. You brought the murder weapon, but we have a technical reason why we cannot allow the murder weapon to be accommodated. That kind of thing can be a bit vexing. But we have also not said we're going to do anything outside normal. Because it's a final. Atiku was clever and smart enough to also offer some firm and clear suggestions as to what the future should do in terms of legislation. And he also did say that judgment will have far-reaching implications on the country, given that you are talking about identity theft, you are talking about forgery, you are talking about grievous issues that normally a Supreme Court of a nation should be able to say, no, this is not who we want and how we want Nigeria to be.
Okay.
Well, it's not under the page. He was saying you can't set bad example for the next generation. And I think it's in order. Don't forget also that when he was talking about INEC, he was saying that should the Supreme Court have assumed that a position that INEC took, which was also which is not against the law, INEC could be allowed to just skit out of it under some interpretation of, discretion. So when the discretion of the courts and the discretion of INEC is not used in the overall interest of the electorate, then that can be a problem. And I think what Atiku has said, and the way he has said it has been quite presidential and statesmanly. Unlike those who we know in APC, when they don't win elections in the former time, their comments were very, very toxic and very destabilizing.
Now, Mr. Showme, in what ways do you believe the judiciary's perceived association with the ruling class might impact the fairness and impartiality of legal decisions in Nigeria, and what implications does this hold for the country
I
and its
think
democracy?
what we need to be thinking about is that the malady that pervades our society has not immuned our judiciary. And if the judiciary is not clearly above board, then we'll have a problem. We can't have judicial officers milling and hanging around for politicians. We can bring you electronic rushes of the present CJ in Port Harcourt and some other locations, saying things that you wouldn't expect them to say. There's a lot of stuff there. And I think what makes, unless we want to play the ostrich and deceive ourselves that all is well, you would then have to ask, what was then the reason why the government of Muhammadu Buhari had to do a Gestapo against judges in this country? There can be no smoke without fire. If you scratch that, you can also go back to what is the retired Justice Musa Datuju has said. The judiciary, especially the highest court in the land, must not just be a court of narrow status interpretation. It must be a court of good intention, good order, to nudge society in all of the right direction. If a Supreme Court set of judges wanted to really be also legislative, using their, the opportunity they have within the practice of law to also even rewrite and push the law and push the intention for that, there's room for all of that. You cannot give us the impression that it is only the lawyers that represent the ruling party that are suddenly smart, and all of the numerous lawyers that represent opposition were not good, and the judges were not going out of their way to make the argument of the other side for them even better than their lawyers. We don't want to dwell too much on this. We have the right to respond. Atiku has responded. He has given out what we consider to be a measured comment. He has offered some suggestions. He's taking the high moral ground. He's trying to be the elder in the room. He's offered some suggestions of what we can do going forward. The fact that one of the hirelings of the president, who probably is even trying so hard to be able to justify his position, is writing the way he has written, doesn't faze us. We expect them to write in an indecorous manner, given that even the president himself, when he was responding to the judgment, all he could say was shenanigans. And we didn't see any shenanigan here. What's shenanigan about us trying to unmask who you are? What's shenanigan with us trying to say that the document you put down is fake? What's shenanigan with us saying that you can't say you went to invest a secondary school that did not exist as at the time you said you graduated? If the society is able to live with that, and you people are all happy to say that, the Supreme Court, for technical reasons, can say that's okay. Of course, what do you expect Atiku to do? Make a comment and offer some suggestions for the future. But other than that, I think and he has also said we'll be here for a while, so we're going to be putting their feet to the fire and try and see how best we can salvage democracy. And there was something instructive Atiku said. Atiku said all of the countries that have been losing democracy in the sub-region, they didn't have elite consensus to lose democracy. It was just that things were not just going the way it's supposed to go, and people were not feeling the way they ought to feel, and people were feeling that people were, rigging the process, or at least taking undue advantage of the opportunities of being in charge of the levers of the state and the resource of it. And at some point in time, some democratic institutions collapsed. Nobody prays for that in Nigeria, but I think we need to continually improve the process. Why should you not want an electronic system that allows us to vote and have very little human interference? Why should other countries be able to do it and not us? Why should we be happy that we're saying that, INEC is just a viewing portal and it's not a coalition portal? Are you telling me that the people who offered us INEC didn't think it will have any impact on the integrity believability
of the
and
elections.
transparency of the process. Why did we then waste our money on it?
Now, Mr. Shomi, talking about improving the system, which you mentioned just now, are there specific reforms or changes that the People's Democratic Party or its presidential candidate, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, advocate for within the judiciary to address concerns and also INEC to ensure a more equitable and independent legal system and electoral umpire?
For the judiciary, he suggested, balancing the way you select them and using the best protocols to pick them, as against just kowtowing to only the political opportunities available to political class. He also suggested that we should reduce the nepotism so that every section will feel their quota there. Like now, there's no Southeast man in the Supreme Court. How fair can that be? Only the Southwest and a few others have their complete quotas filled. Others have not been able to fill that. That's not good. He also suggested for the problem of the country that, look, we have come to a point where we may now begin to consider what is the status of Abuja. He suggested, he reminded them that there was a mayoral suggestion about it. At another point, he also suggested that there's no point in saying that we won't follow the processes that other countries are following, where we will now remove the human element from the counting and the sorting process, such that we can do full electronic. He also suggested that why don't we just follow the pattern of those countries who do 50% plus 1 as the minimum requirement to win on the first round, and that if that doesn't happen, then the first two can then go on a rerun. He also suggested that we should need to pay attention to the geopolitical divide in such a manner that if we could go with one term of 6 years rotation, so that we don't run the risk that we start to pass the baton only between the Southwest and the Northwest. Those are good suggestions. And he also suggested that we should be able to finish litigation before swearing in the president, so that we don't, kind of like tell someone who has taken advantage of the process to now enjoy that advantage while everybody is struggling. He also tried to suggest that there's a way we need to now look at what exactly is the role of INEC in terms of verifying the credentials of candidates, and that it didn't make sense that one of the umpire was coming to court to come and start pretending or acting as though they are even here to come and defend a credential that did not even emanate from them ab initio. All of these tips against a democracy.
Quite a lot of
everybody starts to lose faith in it becomes a problem.
Quite a lot of issues to unpack with regards to this subject. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Shomi. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.